and welcome back to Apple Cottage. This is Sandy. It's Thursday morning, so it's gardening together. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning we do a program that we pick different topics on different garden subjects, and today is going to be on soil tests and soil samples. Now, it's a little side note, I hope you had a fabulous Christmas. It was beautiful here, and I think it's important to spend time with family and friends, and the holidays is a perfect time for that. And so I do hope that you were blessed this Christmas. Now, our subject today for gardening together is soil tests and soil samples. But the first question is why? Why should you take soil samples and do a soil test? What good is it? What will it help me with? Now, in your gardens, you should probably do a soil test about every 2 to 3 years. For sure, every 3 years. What a soil test does is it provides the exact pH of your soil. This can help you with what nutrients and elements are in your soil. Because of the rate of your pH, sometimes a plant, even though the nutrient is there, it can't uptake it. And so all the information that you get in a soil test when you get your results will help you with that. They'll even make recommendations of what they believe that you need. And really, if you really want to be self-sufficient, you want to be in control of your garden to get the most produce out of it, a soil sample and soil test is not a bad idea. Cost-wise, it can run you anywhere from $12 to $25, $35. That just depends on if the soil sample is getting sent to a university, if it's getting sent to a soil lab, what tests they're going to do on them. There's a couple resources for you. Every county has a county extension office, and a county extension office usually will have the soil test forms, the bags that you put the soil in, and they can actually most times send it off for you. When the lab sends it back or the university sends it back, they usually give a copy to the county extension office. They mail you a copy. A little side note, if you put your email on that form, a lot of labs and universities will mail the results to you, and you get it a lot faster. Otherwise, it'll probably take you 2 or 3 weeks to get your results. One of the things you should remember when you're going to do a soil test, do not add any of your fertilizers or manures before you take those samples. If you've already added them, then wait 6 to 8 weeks before you do your soil sample. Now, if you live by a university, there are universities that do soil tests, and like Cornell, it costs you $12 to do a soil test. So if you live in that area, you can have them do the testing, though they still go through the county extension office. You still have to fill out your paperwork and give it to the county extension office, and they take it or ship it to the university. Now, how do you take a soil sample? You need to take at least 10 soil samples in your garden area, up to 15. Some universities recommend you take 20. I always tell people take an average of 12. And you want to take a soil sample which is called a core. And a core is just a slice into the soil, usually about 1 inch wide, and it goes down. If you are a no-till gardener, you want to go to the depth of about 6 inches. If you till, you want to go to the depth of that tilling. So that could be 6 inches, it could be 10 inches. And so you want to take that 10 to 15 soil samples in different parts of your garden. You might be tempted to just do, well, this is my problem area, and that's what I want to do. But don't do that. Take the samples throughout the garden area. You're going to put them all in a bucket. You're going to mix them up. You want to make sure that the soil is crumbly. Don't do it if it's too wet or if it's frozen. You need to wait. And then you basically need 2 cups out of that bucket, and that's what goes to the labs. Now, you can use what they call a soil probe. You can purchase one of those. You could use an auger. You could use a trowel, a shovel, a spade. I'm going to stop the video for just a second, and I am going to put in some photographs. One is a soil probe, so you know what that looks like. One is a little chart on how to take the soil samples if you're using a trowel. And one of them is what a soil sample, when you get the results back, what that looks like. And so I'm just going to stop and I'm going to add that, and then I'll be back. So as you can see, when you're using the trowel, you're still just trying to get a narrow sample in that core. Same with the soil probe. When you mix it in the bucket, you want to mix it and mix it as well as you can. That soil should be crumbly, so it should be fairly easy to do. After you've mixed it and you're going to grab that 2 cups, there's a couple things that you need to know. Now, if you are going to just test for nitrogen, that's a specific special test, and you want to keep that 2 cups that's in the bag in a very cool place until it gets mailed off. A regular soil test does not test for nitrogen because nitrogen doesn't stay in the soil, and so you specifically have to ask for that. But when you go to send it off, you want to make sure that you have completed that form in its entirety. And I actually even like to, if it isn't on the form, I like to add a little piece of paper, and I want to give them some ideas about my garden. I will say past crops that I did. Maybe there's a specific crop that I want to do in the future, and I'll tell them that. If there's tillage, you want to say the tillage and what depth that you do the tillage to. If you use cover crops, mention that. Characteristics about your site. Is it flat? Does it slope? Anything that you think may be pertinent. Is there a lot of rocks in there? Things like that. Add that on that little piece of paper on the note. If you've used fertilizers in the past, tell them what you've used. If you've added manures, tell them that. All these things help the lab when they're analyzing and they're looking at your soil. So you want to get the most out of the money that you spent. Now, you'll either mail it then, the little 2-cup baggie, or you are going to just take it back to the extension office. What I like to do personally, once I get my 2 cups, I like to lay it on a newspaper and let it dry a little more, just in case there's some moisture, and I don't want that moisture affecting when it goes through the mail and gets to the lab. Personal preference. So, things that you're going to learn when it comes back to you, when the results come back. First thing for sure it's going to tell you is your pH. Now, 7 is pH neutral. If it goes lower, it's acidic. If it goes higher, it's alkaline. And that affects how plants grow. Now, most vegetables are pretty flexible. And so you can, 5.5 to 8.5, most vegetables will really grow in that. But if you are taking soil samples in gardens that are for flowers, that have specific shrubs or trees that really need either an acidy soil or an alkaline soil, you need to tell them in the soil test and when you send it in, and that can affect the nutrients that are available. Now, you wouldn't think that it was much different going from a 6 pH to a pH 7. But a 6 is actually 10 times more acidic than the 7 neutral is. But if you go all the way to 5, that's 100 times more acidic than the neutral 7 is. Now, some people will try to change their pH. That is a long process. And you have to keep doing that or it will revert to the natural state. So if you wanted to higher your pH, say it's 5, and you want it to at least be 6 so that you can grow more things, you would add lime to your soil. If you were going to, you had 8.5 pH and you want to lower it some, you could add sulfur, or they have acidic fertilizers now that you could add. I add that around my blueberries, my azaleas, and rhododendrons because they like an acidy soil, and I do not have an acidy soil. Mine is more on the above 7 onto the alkaline side. And so there are things that, especially for specific plants, that you can help. But it will also tell you the amount of organic matter in your soil, and that is really important. Some people add lots of compost and leaves and straws and all kinds of things to give it organic texture to it. So it will tell you the percentage, because what that affects is how much your soil can hold water and how much it can hold nutrients. And so you want a lot of organic matter in your soil. The other thing it will tell you is soil textures, and that can be helpful too, because it'll give you ideas of things that they recommend you add, compost that you add, soil amendments that you add, and you read the results. If you have questions, you can literally go back into the extension office, and usually the horticulturist there can help you read what it's stating. And so that's always a nice thing. But I would just recommend that if you haven't done it before, this spring when the soil unthaws, take some soil samples and do the whole process. Fill out your form as complete as possible. If you have to add notes to it, add notes. And let the extension office send that off, or you mail it yourself. And it can really make a difference on how your garden grows. It can give you more abundance than you can imagine. And so really that investment in your garden every, say, 3 years, it's really very minimal. And I think it's important to know how your soil is improving. If you just did one soil test and you never did it again, how would you know that the things that you were adding and doing to your soil, because some vegetables are heavy feeders and some aren't, and it can make a difference. If you use cover crops, it can make a difference on how your soil builds itself. If it has mycorrhizal fungi, it's just really, it sounds very complicated sometimes, but soil is magical. And so I would just suggest this year, it's going to be 2020, and let's have the best gardens we have ever had. This year in 2020, you start off well. You start with a soil test, you make a grid plan for your garden, you're ready and prepared when spring comes. And this is Sandy at Apple Cottage. As always, please like, subscribe, and share with the world. I do have a new Facebook page. I started it, it's called SuburbanHomesteaderWY, WY for Wyoming. And come join us over there too. I like to share the videos also there. And I do some posts and some blogs, and I think it can be very informative. So, this is Sandy at Apple Cottage. I hope you have a great holiday season, a great 2020 vegetable and fruit season, and I will see you next Tuesday, because every Tuesday and Thursday morning we have gardening together, and I have some really fun topics for next week. So, see you next time.